Xin chào everybody, welcome back. You're watching Vietnam Steve in Exile, and I got a good one for you today. So I've been down under for about a week, and I've got some classic contrasts to tell you between the efficiencies of Vietnam and the inefficiencies of the West, and vice versa, the efficiencies of the West and the inefficiencies of Vietnam. So for those of you that have come in late, my name's Vietnam Steve, and I spent the last 5 or 6 years wooing a lady in Vietnam. And after 5 or 6 years, we finally decided to move down to Australia for a couple of years, get the kids in school, and see what that's like for a change. So never a dull moment for Vietnam Steve. But some of the things that have really stood out relate to about 5 areas since I've been here that have really brought home the contrast to me. So I'm going to run through those. They sort of around customer service, educational standards, a few common sense things that are interesting, and whatever else I think about. Had a couple of others on the tip of my tongue, but they must have been lies because I can't remember them. So without further ado, let's get into it. Supply chain. And that's probably one that really shocked me when I got here, because I hadn't kept my house up to spec while I've been away, obviously, and everything's quite old. So we've had to go out and buy a few things, like a desk, a couple of desk chairs, dressing cabinet for the bedroom, and fridges and dishwashers. So without fail, every store that I went to did not have what we wanted, and most stores would look it up and say that is not available in any store in Australia. So we're trying to buy, for instance, a dressing table for the bedroom. I went to a small shop called IKEA, and needless to say that while they had it on display, when I went to buy it, they said this is out of stock in the entirety of Australia. So Australia's, the 5th largest continent, and this particular dresser was not available in Australia. Can you believe that? So they're sending that to us down the track. I went to buy a desk for one of the daughters, and we wanted a white desk. I don't know why, but we needed a white desk, and they only had the black ones for sale, although there was a white one on display. And so my wife is sort of elbowing me, saying, well, ask if we can buy the white one on display, and then we've got the white one. So I asked the guy if we could, this is a small shop called Officeworks, if we could buy the floor stock, and he said no. I mean, I've got money, he's got a desk, but he said no. And my wife, with her limited English, said, why not? Straight away. It was sort of a red rag to a bull. Why can't we buy this one? But he was up to the challenge, and he came straight back and said, it's against the rules. Who'd have thought there'd be rules about that? So she said, what rules? Because there's really no rules about buying the floor stock. It's just made up bullshit from Officeworks. But needless to say, Officeworks have a rule that they can't sell you the floor stock. And so we couldn't get that desk, and there were none of those in Australia either. With that one, we resolved it by buying a black desk, because we kind of figured out when we were going to buy the white desk, we were going to put a black mouse mat right across the top of the desk, so it would have looked black anyway. So we bought a black desk there. But I was surprised coming down under here that the supply chain in the West, and I'm using Australia as a proxy for the West, is just broken. So none of those things were actually available when we wanted them. And even the dishwasher, similar story. They had it on display and they had it advertised at a really cheap price, but there were none in Queensland. That's the state I'm in. So I had to go to another shop. I went to another provider and bought it. So it's just sad to see the decline of the West and the inability to service basic needs. I'm not trying to buy a $17,000 triathlon bike or something. I'm just trying to buy a bedside table for a bedroom. Now you contrast that with Vietnam, and I remember there we bought an Emperor-sized bed, which is bigger than king size. We bought it about 8 or 9 in the evening, and they delivered it at about 10:15 at night, straight away. I bought a TV in Vietnam to go on the wall, and 2 guys came and installed it as part of the sale process of the TV. And the lady from the internet company came and tuned it all in because it connects, it's a smart TV. So I found that not the customer service, but the supply chain seems a lot more robust in Vietnam than it did here in Australia. Stick with me, got a few more of these, pearls of wisdom, and I hope you're enjoying the background today. It's a lovely spot down here, so I thought I'd come back down. So thanks to all of you that have been subscribing since I've been in exile. It's great to know that you're still keen on Vietnam Steve in exile, and it's not just the Vietnam Steve walking around the streets of Vietnam that's kept you interested. So I really appreciate those of you that have subscribed of recent times. Please comment if you've got particular things you'd like to see from the new locale here, because I'm happy to get out and do something every day. Second on the hit parade is probably educational standards. So the last week's been getting 2 daughters into school, and they've had a couple of classes, and they're most surprised about how chilled the school life is here. In Vietnam, if you start school on a Monday, you're having a test on Friday to make sure that you've learnt what you learnt that week. Here, there's no test planned for 5 or 6 weeks. The classes that they're doing in the equivalent year seem to be a couple of years behind. So the girl that's in year 10 thought she did some of this math stuff in about year 8, and the girl that's in year 7 said she's already covered all of this in year 6. One of the daughters is not a maths fan in Vietnam, and one of the angst of going to school in Vietnam was the maths problems for her. She's not only enjoying maths here, but she's got out of one subject and taken on an advanced maths class because she's already done that maths in the past. So interesting story just from the first week was there's 5 maths tests the students had to go through, and the 4th one of the students had a problem with, so the teacher set about trying to solve it on the board for the class, but couldn't actually solve it. And my daughter managed to go up to the teacher after the class, and because she's quite shy, and just explain to him how that maths question could be solved. So it's a low bar on maths here in the West. It's a low bar on the school, but there are a lot of funny things that I actually see. I get about 30 emails a week from the school. I've got 2 kids there, so it's 15 each. And this particular school has netball, basketball, golf, swimming, drama, excursions, tennis, and a whole lot of other extracurricular activities. So there's emails coming thick and fast from the school, and they're actually enjoying it. They've all got a laptop here. They were looking to get the textbooks and get to the library and get the textbooks and read them, but all the texts come on the laptop through Microsoft Teams, and so they just log on and do everything online. They're feeling quite chilled at school. I have a good conversation as I'm taking them to school, and I ask them how they're sleeping in Australia, because they're in separate rooms here, and in Vietnam they were sharing quite a large room, but they were sharing a room. And the youngest one said she's sleeping very well because she's no longer stressed from school, so that's got to be a good thing. But it is quite shocking to see the difference in standards between an Asian school, albeit Vietnam, and a Western school, albeit Australia. I'm sure the rest of the West is up to scratch on things, but I do know Australia is very much in decline, and unsurprisingly the education standards are a couple of years behind Vietnam. Just trying to think of some other school scenarios. They do take a fantastic lunch to school, and I might slip a photo of that in between this and the next segment, just to show you the lunchbox they're taking to school, because it could be made at a restaurant. And I know when I went to school, I had a pressed meat sandwich that was wrapped in greaseproof paper and thrown in the bottom of my school bag, and probably eaten on the way to school or on the way home. And these kids are taking a gourmet gourmet lunch. So the second thing that I'm surprised about, supply chain and also education standards. It is interesting because they had a maths question, which is something along the lines of, I've got 10 apples and I ate 3 apples, how many apples have I got left? That works well if English is your primary language, but if English isn't your primary language, they kind of ask, is it an English test or a maths test? And so I can't argue with that. I do see some things that boggle the mind. And if it's not an English test, then maybe the question should have been in Japanese or something like that. Anyway, stick with me. Let's get on to customer service and some of the things I've seen between the customer service I experience in Vietnam and the customer service I experience down here in the land down under. So one of the things that really has surprised me is the customer service down here. And one of the kids has piped up and said, hey Dad, why don't I feel like I'm the king when I'm at the shop? And I had to ask her, what do you mean by that? What are you talking about? And she explained that, in Vietnam, the customer is king, and the shop owners are really going out of their way to help you get what you want. Whereas here in Australia, the customers are an inconvenience, and that's what it feels like. And I have to say, I've felt that, but being a Westerner, I ignore it. But for them, they're thinking about all the contrasts that they can between Vietnam and here. And so one of the things that I think is a big contrast is that the service levels, but maybe it's not all of Australia, but particularly where I live in Australia, Queensland, it's gone to hell in a handbasket. And so we're not getting much service at the shop, and we're not being looked after like we're used to being looked after. I'd be keen to know where you are and also what you feel about customer service, because this is an interesting one. Sometimes in Asia it's a little bit different, the service that you get, and there's quite a lot of pushing and shoving to get that service, but I do find it's generally quite good, particularly where I was in Vietnam. And I've got a sample size of 1 Vietnam and a sample size of 1 Queensland, but I can say categorically, Queensland's gone to hell in a handbasket, and it's a disappointment to see. All right, on to the final one. Can't remember what it was, so I'll have to just pause you here and get my wits about me. We've talked about supply chain being broken, some products not available in the whole of Australia. We've talked about the educational standards and how the kids are finding it super chill and not too difficult. And we've talked about customer service and the below par that we have in Australia. So I'll come back with the final one and then I'll let you go. All right, rapid fire round. What I was thinking about here was common sense. I've had a few nutty things happen to me this week. One is a breathalyzer test from the police where they get you to blow into a straw to see if you've had any alcohol. So they take it out of a plastic bag. It's a plastic straw, and you blow in the bag. Needless to say, I was under the limit on that particular day, and he then gives the plastic straw back to me and says, "That's got your saliva on it. Here you go. Take that with you," rather than putting it in a bin and disposing of it responsibly. In this town I live in, plastic straws are outlawed. If a shop owner gives you a plastic straw, they're liable for a fine and a term in prison. And yet the police are using plastic straws to check your alcohol levels. So I would have thought the government could lead by example, but that's just one of the dickhead things I see here. Another one was picked up a trailer with my son. A trailer is a thing that goes on the back of your car to put rubbish in, and went and paid a deposit on a Saturday and said we'd be back on Monday to pick it up, but couldn't make it Monday, so went there on Friday. Well, the woman proceeded to berate us and tell us that I thought you were coming on Monday and the trailer's not ready. It's Friday, like 5 days later. I think they'd sold it to someone else or they just hadn't done it, but good Lord. Well, you turn up on Friday or Monday, your trailer should be there. Another common sense dickhead thing I see down here. It is interesting that out of the mouth of babes, and I've got two babes, two young daughters, they ask the most sensible questions, and I can't give them an answer on some of the things that I see. Trying to think of another one, but can't really explain it. They have mentioned that a lot of the conversation by the students at school is very childish. You know, one's 13, one's 16, so maybe that's their age group. But they seem to be thinking they were having more in-depth and comprehensive conversations with their friends in Vietnam about deeper things. And so they found it very childish and primary schoolish, the conversations that the ladies are having at school. All right, let me wrap this one up on a good note. I've got them into a private school, and they're going really well. They're loving it. The school has been super attentive to me as a 60-year-old new parent. I got no idea what happens at school. It was 50 years ago when I went to school. They've been helping me out, and I seem to have got across everything I need to. It's not an expensive private school, but it just gives them a bit of a break in trying to get into the culture here down under. You've been watching another video from Vietnam Steve in Exile. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.